After spending weeks planning an elaborate surprise party to celebrate his big promotion, my husband betrayed me in front of everyone by admitting he's been sleeping with my cousin behind my back. The string lights twinkled softly across the backyard, their glow casting a warm, festive light over the carefully arranged tables. The air smelled of grilled steak, fresh flowers, and the faintest hint of vanilla from the candles I'd placed everywhere. Everything was perfect. I had spent weeks planning this surprise party for Ethan's big promotion, the decorations, the caterer, the guest list, even the playlist humming in the background. This was supposed to be his moment, but I couldn't deny how excited I was to see his face when he realized what I'd done for him. Ethan had worked so hard for this. A corner office, a six-figure salary, he deserved this celebration. And I wanted everyone here, our closest friends, our family, to witness how much I loved him. I smoothed down my dress and glanced nervously at the cake, its gold-lettered frosting proclaiming, "Congratulations, Ethan. We're so proud." "He'll love it, Ava," said Marcy, my best friend, as she handed me a glass of wine. "You think so?" I asked, my voice betraying my nerves. Marcy gave me a reassuring smile. "Absolutely. He's going to realize he's the luckiest man alive." I hoped she was right. Ethan arrived just as the sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in swirls of pink and orange. I heard the crunch of his car's tires in the driveway and darted toward the patio doors. "Everyone, quiet!" I hissed, motioning for the guests to duck down behind the furniture. The door opened, and Ethan stepped inside, his silhouette briefly backlit by the last rays of sunlight. "Surprise!" everyone shouted, leaping out from their hiding spots. Ethan stopped in his tracks, his eyes wide as the room erupted into cheers. "What the?" he started, before breaking into a wide smile. "You guys. This is, wow. I didn't see this coming." I stepped forward, grinning ear to ear. "Congratulations, babe. You deserve it." He wrapped an arm around my waist and kissed me lightly on the forehead. "Thanks, Ava. You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "It wasn't trouble," I said, smiling. "I wanted to. For you." The party was in full swing. Laughter and chatter filled the backyard as guests mingled, plates of food in hand. I stood near the drinks table, watching Ethan talk animatedly with his coworkers. My heart swelled with pride. "You did good, Ava," Marcy said, sidling up to me with a glass of sangria. I was about to reply when I noticed someone walking toward Ethan, a familiar figure in a crimson dress. My cousin, Laura. She slid a hand onto Ethan's arm, laughing at something he said, her body leaning a little too close to his. My stomach twisted. Marcy followed my gaze and frowned. "Is that Laura?" I said tersely. Marcy's eyes narrowed. She's always been a little too friendly for my taste. I tried to shake it off, telling myself I was imagining things. Laura was family. Ethan loved me. As the evening went on, the unease in my chest grew. Every time I turned around, it felt like Laura and Ethan were together, laughing, talking, their heads bent close. I tried to brush it off. This was his night. I wasn't going to ruin it with unfounded jealousy. But then, as the guests gathered near the patio for speeches, I saw it. A fleeting moment. Lara's hand brushed against Ethan's chest, and his hand lingered on her waist just a fraction too long. I froze. The speeches began, and I plastered on a smile as Ethan's boss gave a glowing toast. People cheered, clinking glasses. Then it was Ethan's turn to speak. "Thank you all for being here," he began, holding up his glass. "This is, honestly, overwhelming. Ava, you've outdone yourself. This party, everything, it's perfect." A murmur of approval rippled through the crowd, and I felt a flicker of relief. "But," Ethan continued, his voice shifting, "there's something I need to say." The crowd fell silent. I frowned, my grip tightening on my wine glass. "Ethan?" I whispered. He looked at me, his expression unreadable, before turning to the crowd. This has been an amazing night, and I'm grateful for all of you being here. But I can't pretend anymore. I owe Ava, and all of you, the truth. My heart began to race. What truth? I asked, my voice barely audible. He hesitated, glancing down at the ground. Then he said it. I've been having an affair. With Laura. The words hung in the air like a grenade, seconds before impact. The crowd gasped. Someone dropped a glass, the sharp shatter echoing in the stunned silence. I stared at him, my mind struggling to process what I'd just heard. What did you just say? Ethan met my gaze, his eyes filled with something that looked like shame, but not enough. I didn't want you to find out like this, Ava. Find out like this? I repeated, my voice rising. You mean at the party I threw for you? In front of everyone we know? Laura stepped forward, her face pale. Ava, Don't you dare, I snapped, turning on her. Don't you dare say a word to me right now. Ava, let me explain, Ethan tried, reaching for me. I stepped back, holding up my hands. Explain? Oh, please, Ethan. Go ahead. Tell me how you managed to betray me in the worst possible way. Tell me how long this has been going on. Tell me how you looked me in the eye every single day and lied to me. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, he said weakly. How long? I demanded, my voice shaking with fury. 6 months, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. 6 months. Half a year. I laughed bitterly, tears streaming down my face. 6 months. That's how long you've been sneaking around behind my back. With her. I pointed at Laura, who flinched. Ava, Laura began. Save it, I snapped. You're not even worth the breath it would take to yell at you. The crowd was still frozen, their eyes darting between us like they couldn't believe what they were witnessing. I turned back to Ethan, my voice trembling with rage. You've humiliated me. Betrayed me. In front of everyone. And for what? For her? You threw away everything we had for this? I didn't mean to hurt you, he said, his voice pathetic. But you did. I screamed, my voice breaking. You hurt me more than I ever thought was possible. And the worst part? You didn't even have the decency to tell me in private. You waited until you had an audience. Tears streamed down my face, but I didn't care who saw them. Get out, I said, my voice cold and final. Ava, please. I said, get out. I shouted, pointing toward the door. Ethan flinched at the sharpness in my voice. He looked at me, then at the crowd of stunned faces around us. For a moment, he seemed frozen, as if weighing whether he could somehow salvage the situation. Don't make this worse, Ethan, I hissed, my voice low and trembling with barely controlled rage. He nodded slowly, his shoulders slumping in defeat. He turned to grab his coat from the back of a chair, his movements awkward and stiff. Laura, who had been hovering a few steps behind him, spoke up timidly, Ava, I spun to face her, the force of my glare enough to make her take a step back. Don't you dare say a word to me, Laura, I snapped. You've done enough. Her cheeks flushed red, and she looked down at her feet, fumbling with the strap of her purse. You too, I said, my voice rising, you think you can just humiliate me like this and walk away? Is that it? I gestured at the crowd of our family and friends, all of whom were still frozen in shock. In front of everyone? Are you proud of yourselves? Ava, please, Ethan began, his tone pleading. This wasn't how I wanted it to come out. Oh, how you wanted it to come out? I interrupted, my voice thick with sarcasm. What was the plan, Ethan? Were you going to drop this bombshell after I handed you the cake? Maybe during a toast? Stop it, Ava, he said sharply, his tone shifting to frustration. Stop it? I repeated, my voice breaking. You've destroyed my life, Ethan. You've wrecked us. And you have the nerve to tell me to stop? Lara reached out to touch his arm, her voice soft. Ethan, maybe we should. Don't touch him. I shouted, stepping between them. I pointed at the door again, my hand shaking. Get out, both of you. Now. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Ethan sighed heavily and nodded. Without another word, he walked toward the door, Lara trailing after him. As they reached the threshold, I couldn't stop myself. Oh, and one more thing, I called out, my voice venomous. They paused, turning back toward me. Good luck making it work, I said, my lips twisting into a bitter smile. Because if he could cheat on me, Lara, his wife, what makes you think he won't do the same to you? Lara's face turned ashen, and for a split second, I thought I saw doubt flicker in her eyes. But Ethan grabbed her hand and led her out the door without looking back. As soon as the door shut behind them, the room erupted into whispers. I stood there, trembling, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. Ava, Marcy's voice cut through the noise as she appeared at my side. Come on, let's go inside. You don't need to be out here right now. No, I said firmly, shaking my head. I'm not hiding. Not in my own home. Marcy hesitated, then nodded, placing a steadying hand on my shoulder. One of Ethan's coworkers, Dan, stepped forward, his face pale with discomfort. Ava, What? I snapped, rounding on him. You have something to say? Dan raised his hands defensively. No. I'm sorry, okay? None of us knew. I laughed bitterly. Oh, I'm sure you didn't. But thanks for coming. Feel free to grab some cake on your way out. That seemed to be the cue for people to start shuffling toward the door. One by one, the guests filtered out, offering awkward murmurs of sympathy as they passed. Ava, call me if you need anything, one woman said. I can't believe Ethan would do this, muttered another. I barely heard them. I stood in the middle of the room, staring at the decorations I had so painstakingly put together. The glittering lights, the banners, the untouched cake, it all felt like a cruel joke now. When the last guest was gone, Marcy closed the door and turned to me. Okay, Ava. Let's sit down, Anne. I don't want to sit, I interrupted, pacing back and forth. My hands were trembling, and my chest felt like it might burst. I want to scream. I want to throw something. I want to. Without thinking, I grabbed the champagne flute from the table and hurled it against the wall. It shattered into 1,000 tiny pieces, and for a moment, the sound was oddly satisfying. Feel better? Marcy asked softly. No, I admitted, my voice breaking. I sank onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. Marcy sat beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. You didn't deserve this, Ava. None of it. Ethan is an idiot, and Lara, she's just trash. I thought he loved me, I whispered, fresh tears streaming down my face. I thought we were happy. How could I have been so blind? You weren't blind, Marcy said firmly. He was just really good at hiding who he really is. This isn't your fault. I nodded numbly, though her words felt hollow. How could I not blame myself? How could I not wonder if I'd missed some glaring sign? As the night dragged on, Marcy stayed by my side, refusing to leave until she was sure I wouldn't break down completely. I'm going to be okay, I told her finally, my voice barely above a whisper. You don't have to be okay right now, she said gently. But you will be. I promise. And as I sat there, staring at the wreckage of what was supposed to be a celebration, I realized she was right. It would take time, probably a long time, but I would get through this. One way or another, I would rebuild my life. Without Ethan. Without Lara. Without anyone who didn't truly value me.